So love. And the topic, love and freedom. And it seems to be a theme of the day, yes? So beautiful, the coordination that comes together. Love is vexing, and maybe we see that it's been a vexing topic for us as individuals. I see it. There was a realization early on that I expected unconditional love. And there was another realization that I wasn't getting it. It's jarring. It's jarring. And later on, only later on, came the realization I wasn't willing to give it. That I wasn't willing to give it. In fact, I made a project back in my very worldly years, meaning worldly thought, worldly ideals. I made a project of asking everyone that I knew, every friend that I worked with, and my friends at that point were all quote unquote work friends. I asked them this question. I said, is there anything which your partner could do for which you could not love them anymore? Because I was dealing with this personal thing as I seemed to have lost the capacity to love someone that I had committed to love forever. And I was really struggling with this. And what I found is very interesting that each of us have a limit. And asking this question, everyone had an answer. This one's to be faced. This one's to be faced. Because there's a limit that we placed now, and it's innocent enough. It is so doggone innocent in terms of how it happens, and yet it happens. If you look, you see, it happens. I expect unconditional love, and yet I'm unwilling or unable, seemingly unable to offer it. Does that resonate? Yeah. It's and in here we find what makes life jarring from this perspective. We'll find it right here in examining this. Now, fast forward, because I had come to realize something else. I realized that I didn't know one darn thing. I did not know anything. Now, I could say the topic could be love or peace or anything which we seek, joy. I could say anything, and there's some realization, well, this is what I want. I always thought it was a car or a new friend or more money or a different place to live or a different job or something like that. But after living life and being what people call successful, I discovered that's not actually what I'm seeking. And there had been a memory, and the memory came like this. It was like this little child within, and the words were, all I ever wanted was to be happy. And somehow that was a key that unlocked the door, because it gave me a new way. Having realized I don't know anything, what does that mean about how to be happy? Even if I look at my role models, which one of them was happy? And so so I asked. Something broke open in my life, and so I asked, how, where, who, like this, and it was as if I was guided at this point, and I ended up in India, of all amazing places, with very saintly soul, an embodiment of love, fierce love, in fact. And I had been practicing for some time, coming from the place of not knowing and asking questions and listening to what resonated and working with it. And so through the practice, I was finding a shift, a change. Please forgive. And the change was, I called it. I talked to Swamiji and I said, Swamiji, one day I said, Swamiji, I'm falling in love with life. And fierce love responded and said, no, not falling, rising. And then he said this, which was quite interesting at the time. And I made it a project to learn what he meant. He said, people think that love is a verb, that it's what we do. And he said, it's not true. Love is a noun. It's who you are. And so I would vouch for this at this point. It's who you are. And there was this discovery in the teachings, various teachings of the various traditions. It is said that love is natural. Love is natural. And I'll share this example that had been shared with me years ago. That it's not a feeling. Now, I had always equated love with like. I had always felt that that which I liked so much, I loved. And this was an absolute equating within this mind. It's the way I saw it. And so what I found was my world is being rocked here, and love is natural. This example was given, and you can each participate mentally in this example. Let's say that you wake up in the morning, a little groggy, and you start moving towards the bathroom, and you hit your toe on the bed. Has anyone ever had this happen? And so you start the morning with a scream of pain. And then what? And then what? Do you see what happens? Do you care for the toe? Do you come to the aid of the toe? Yeah? Yeah, it's all about the toe then, is that correct? It's all about the toe. Is there romance or something like that? It's all about the toe at that point. And yeah. Now, is there any objection to the toe's behavior? The toe is bad and it doesn't deserve your aid? It's not worthy of love? Look, it's blue now. I can't love blue things. Yeah? This description is actually given. It's a particular Bhagavad Gita translation where I came across this, and wow. Just an illustration of this, of what's being said. Love is natural. Love is your own nature. Love is your own real nature. It's who you are. Love is your own real nature. We love each of us naturally. And what's being shared is it's not a feeling. It's a state of being. But even deeper, it's who and what I am. I love naturally, meaning within whatever limits I have established as me, then love will flow absolutely, without constraints, without limits. If I take myself to be this body, then love will flow without constraint to any aspect of this body. Any portion of this cooperative society, whether it's the fingers or the toes or the spleen or the eyeballs or any of them, will qualify for my love without exception. Does that make sense? It's very practical. Yeah? And so what was being shared is that this love is actually unconditional. And I think we see it as it relates. We talk often in society about self-love. And here we'd say maybe we misunderstand self. Because self-love, limited as self, can never be satisfying. But actually, I am not the limited. I'm not the illusion. I'm not the idea of myself. You and I are one. In the real sense. In the real sense. In the absolute sense. In the real sense. And what's happening is that love is my nature, if we allow for it. Love is my nature. And yet I'm limiting it. How am I limiting it? Innocently enough, with my mind. Because I'm drawing lines. And we deal with this ultimate reality, this statement of reality, and we keep coming face to face with it. And everyone will say, we're one, you and I are one, namaste, like this. But then the practical aspect of it is the seeing of this, or the allowing of it. The allowing of it to be the truth, because my mind tells me it's not true. Yeah? And in fact, each of us are living in our mind. We could say to what extent are we individuals? Well, we're individuals with our perspectives. We could certainly say the color of the skin, the shape of the skin, the age of the body, all of these things. But what is really the root of our individuality? It's our different perspectives, our different ways of seeing, and different ways of seeing. We could say the conditioning, like this. And in actual fact, if we investigate it, what we see, what we learn, is what I'm meaning to say, is that what I see, whether it's through sight or sound or hearing or taste or touch, what I see is actually only how I see. If I can twist it a little bit, maybe it'll make more sense, but I'm only seeing ever how I see. I loved cars. Now that's stupidity. I don't mean just this idea that I love cars, but I mean even the statement, because I can't love a car. What is this about loving a car? I love a car and then I won't love anything else. But what I see is that I had established a preference system which existed in my mind. Yes? And so I was open to cars, and my experience was I would see cars all the time. And they would be objects of lust for me. And so I would have a whole preference system about cars. And so as a result, what I saw in life, most of life I passed by, I never saw it. But I saw the car part, I saw the girl part, I saw the part about technology. Whatever my preference system was, that's all I could ever see. Does that resonate? So it's just said, what I see is actually how I see. I just see my preference system. I'm seeing an outer world, but I'm seeing it according to my perspective. And so what I'm really seeing is my perspective, not an outer world, if we allow for it, if it makes some sense. What we would say here, love and freedom, is that actually life is happening for me, not to me. And that's a big switch. What does that mean, life is happening for me, not to me? Well, I seek love, I am love. If I reveal the love within me, and if I offer it, if I radiate it, if I include all within it, then of course there will be no lack of love. In a way, it's a philosophical point, but it's a real point. In other words, I am limiting the love. I am the one limiting the love, innocently enough, because I established this preference system. Where's the preference system? In my mind. Now, life happens for me. For what purpose? To free me of my preference system. That's freedom. To free me from the limited notion of self, the limited idea of self. And it's very deep and very pervasive, but the sense starting with the I am sense, the sense of me, which is in waking state and a little bit less in dream state, predominant. But everyone has a moment we call a moment of happiness, or a meditative moment, where we all experience life without a sense of self, without the sense of separation, without the sense of lack, yeah? Without longing. Is it correct? Now, interestingly enough, we would say that moment that we would typically call a moment of happiness, and no lack of love in that moment. Do we relate? Do you see it? No lack of love in that moment. No longing for love in that moment, yeah? Which would clearly mean you are love. Because if you're not, you would continue to long for it, interestingly. So we say in this moment, Thich Nhat Hanh makes an observation. He says, I used to think, this was when he was first entering spiritual path, I used to think being a Buddha was far away from me. Far away, in the future and for others. And then I realized that each of us are Buddhas sometimes. And I just want to give you a lens, which is that moment is perfection. It is who you are. It is what you are. And it is a moment of freedom. And love will free us. This meaning, my capacity to eliminate the barriers that I've established, the preference system, that I've established, and to eliminate its suzerainty in my life, to eliminate my worship of my preference system, allows me to radiate love because it's who I am everywhere. In the same kind of love as for the toe. And everyone here has had experience of this. In the beginning of a relationship, where no objections have been observed yet. But as soon as that objection comes, yeah. So in closing this, and then I just want to read this. This is from attributed. The couple of paragraphs are attributed to Glenda Green, and the words shared are attributed to Yeshua, to Jesus. And this is reference the final beatitude, which is said to be the greatest beatitude of this great teaching called Sermon of the Mount. And Yeshua says this: "Blessed are they who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." This is the beatitude. Now, here's what Yeshua says about this. He says, in the English language, persecution implies an intentional harassment or punishment. In Aramaic, it typically meant suffering. Our Creator never afflicts or badgers his children, although his greatest longing is to be known by them in the fullness of existence. So we would call this God realization or self-realization. It's the same. So the Creator's longing is for us to realize the nature of existence and to be free. This is what's being shared. And then, it is through challenge and the survival of suffering that a person grows beyond her protective bubble to experience the love of God in a greater way. In any relationship, the one who establishes conditions is the dominant party. Therefore, as long as a person refuses to accept in good faith God's power to change or expand the conditions of life, there cannot be a truly sacred relationship. There's a second meaning to this beatitude, which relates to the vanquishing of illusion, freedom. To attain this additional blessing, you must realize that for righteousness' sake means for love's sake. Whenever you stand firmly in the midst of a hardship, holding and expressing the love that you are, you will witness illusions falling away. And I feel like as these words are said, there are some realizations that come. Life will become less ominous. Yeah? Through being the love that you are empowered to transcend your suffering. So this is the message. It is our capacity to love because it is who we are. If we allow for the fact that we ourselves are standing in the way of love, and that what we are called to is to allow these experiences that life is giving us to be for us, for our benefit, opportunities to radiate what we are as we are, then love frees us from suffering. Hari Om Tat Sat. So if we have...
Anybody come on up to the mic? Questions? You stay right there.
Okay, I'll stay here. Please.
Thank you for your talk. It made me think of what Jesus said, another part of the blessed are the merciful, for they shall have mercy. And this is speaking of a truth, because everything that we experience is our own perception of things. So the only time we ever experience unconditional love or mercy or any forgiveness is when we ourselves are forgiving or merciful or unconditional or loving unconditionally. Thank you.
Thank you. We can say when we allow existence as it is.
I think many people cringe when I get up here. I do this way too often. But I really appreciate this because about 3 years ago, in fact, it was on Juneteenth of 22, I had this powerful experience of feeling the limitations I'd put on love over my lifetime. And first, I've talked about, I think, in a sermon here, what happened was realizing that I'd always been looking for love rather than seeking to give it. And it brought me to tears. And then I realized almost immediately that God forgave me for my shortcomings and that I could go forward from there trying to do that. And then came the idea, what I'm here to do is love everyone. And again, almost immediately I went, there's no way I want to do that. I mean, everyone? Really? Really? And then, again, it came to me almost immediately, yeah, but it's worth the effort and God will forgive your shortcoming doing that. Well, I went forward that summer and I think I really lived it for a while. I just was so expansive and so loving and just so much enjoying the dance when I go out to dance that it felt like it was really happening. And then I sort of lost it. I've come to realize that when I fell in love with a particular person, it began to narrow that world. And the expansion of loving everyone got narrower and narrower. I just didn't have time for them. I'm in love with her. Anyway, I'm kind of recovering from that experience. And I'm realizing I want to get back there, but I think what I learned from listening to you is it's a process of freeing yourself to love unconditionally. And that the idea that I'm going to suddenly do it all was just too overwhelming, but I can take steps in that direction. I can find the limitations. I can find what's holding me back and free myself to love unconditionally. Maybe not you, but I could love him unconditionally. Anyway, thank you for the message.
In fact, we would say that life will give us the opportunity. That we don't have to find the opportunity, it will show up.
I just want to share, about a decade ago, I was in a therapy session with a very prominent and knowledgeable psychotherapist in New Hampshire, and he was connected with the University of New Hampshire, and he was very informative in terms of the type of loved one I was dealing with, and she's my daughter, one of my daughters, and I learned a lot from him, and he helped me in many ways, but there came a day when I knew it was our last session because I didn't really know how to be unconditional love, but I knew it existed. And I knew, my father was real close, so I was fortunate to have that as a base, my mother too. And he looked at me, and for a minute, he's sitting across a coffee table from me, and I swear I saw red in this man's eyes because I had just said, he was telling me to stop the toxicity by basically getting rid of my daughter, in whatever better words he said as a psychotherapist. And I looked at him and I said, well, that's not an option. And I said, I am striving for unconditional love. And that's when he looked at me with his red beady eyes and said, there is, in this deeper voice than he usually uses, there is no such thing as unconditional love. And there was this moment, you know, you know what I was feeling. This guy's the devil.
That's the mind.
And I said, oh, there is. And we're done. And I took my stuff and I walked away. Just wanted to share that.
Oh, just more, sorry. Words, 3 maybe. A quote, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Some have heard the name from years past. The question he had asked was, what is this stress everyone is talking about? Which gives a little purview of his experience with existence. But what is the stress everyone's talking about? There was discussion, and he translated. He said, resistance to existence. Resistance to existence. So like, dislike, that's different. That's not love. Like, dislike, that's not love. It's not that we want to partake in everything, saying, this is it, this is it, this is it. But the Dalai Lama was asked for a definition of love. He gave a one-word answer. He said, acceptance. And so we want to accept existence to appear in our lives however it appears, and then do what we need to do. But the acceptance wants to be first. This is serenity prayer, isn't it? It's the acceptance wants to be first. And the way you'll know it is if you can get to a place of well-wishing. If you can just get to that place of wishing whatever the situation is, whatever the person is well, then you'll know that you're clear. And love will shine. Thank you. God bless us, everyone.